Cyberpunk is a huge genre, defined by vast, uncompromising cityscapes, monolithic corporations, and petty crime. But at its core, it can be boiled down to four words: high-tech, low-life. Stories within cyberpunk universes usually focus around lower-class citizens, struggling against the heartless and inexorable society they find themselves trapped in. Often, these tales are tragedies, as the characters realise that there is no escape. However, there will almost always be something they discover along the way that's worth fighting for, dying for, and very rarely worth living for. The 1968 novel, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, is the first work recognised as cyberpunk. It tells the story of a man that hunts and brutally kills escaped android slaves, all so that he can buy his depressive partner, a live animal, one of the few remaining status symbols left, which is in turn brutally killed by one of the aforementioned androids. Well, cyberpunk media in the past was an interesting thought experiment of what our society could become if we continue to prioritise the advancement of technology over everything else, including personal freedoms and even basic human rights. Then utilising said technology for use in warfare, population control, and the ungovernable creation of capital. During the 1970s and 1980s, corporations were emerging more into the public eye. This meant that there was a boom in cyberpunk media. Authors, artists, and directors were realising the potential risk that these companies pose to us as humans, hidden by facades of progress and development. In addition to this, media at the time was exploiting another fear that was extremely prevalent in the West: Japan. Japan was experiencing a huge economic boom during the 1980s, and this scared a lot of Westerners, as they were being told that the huge influx of both Japanese culture and products that had happened as a result of the boom would soon overtake and corrupt the idealized society that they were used to. America, as usual, lay at the center of this fear, specifically the West Coast, due to their proximity to Japan. The effects of this xenophobic outlook can still be felt in the genre today, as companies will utilize Japanese culture to make their work appear cooler, whilst ignoring any actual cultural significance that the Japanese have. So in effect, past audiences could look at the genre as a sort of worst case scenario, as a warning sign almost. So what about cyberpunk captivates our interest as a modern audience? Well, maybe it's the fact that those warning signs have been ignored. Many people today can actually relate to the characters that they are seeing within the genre. Take a look at Blade Runner 2049. The main character is a lonely single man working as a cog in a machine that doesn't care about him, living in a society that at best ignores him and at worst ridicules him. According to Time magazine, the number of people either married to or living with a partner has fallen by 10% since 1990, which may sound small, but in reality it represents a larger cultural shift. Less and less people are finding what for a long time has been considered one of the most important things in life: love. However, the rise of incel culture isn't the only factor that contributes to the relatability of cyberpunk. It has to be said, for a lot of people, especially in my generation, environmental factors are the most scary thing currently going on. In the 80s, they were scared of huge cities dominated by advertising, crime, and big scary companies. Now, we're still kind of far away from that reality. But in 1980, the rural population was exceeding the urban by 950 million. And in 2008, however, the urban population went above the rural by 9 million. Because, well,
I think this is the most significant financial crisis in the post-war period.
There are fears the sell-off will continue on Wall Street.
Soaring gas prices, falling home prices, and rising unemployment.
And in 2020, this figure sits at 960 million. So that hits a bit too close to home for a lot of people. This means that some examples within the genre have explored issues with the natural environment, such as Elysium in 2013 by Neil Blomkamp, where Earth is an overpopulated wasteland, Snowpiercer 2013 by Bong Joon-ho, where the Earth is literally frozen over, and Ready Player One 2018 by Steven Spielberg, based on a 2011 novel by Ernest Cline, where the depletion of fossil fuels has caused an energy crisis and something called the Great Recession. Now, as someone living somewhere going through a cost of living crisis, surprisingly I can relate to that somewhat. I just hope that this time around people actually pay attention to the warning of imminent environmental collapse. Fashion also plays a part in why we can relate to modern cyberpunk. More and more we are seeing styles and trends emerge within real life that reflect the themes the genre represent. Characters in cyberpunk typically tend to wear more resistant, hard-wearing and utility-based pieces of clothing. As more information comes out about larger fashion brands that produce cheaper and lower quality pieces whilst exploiting cheap labour in third world countries, more people are making the switch to brands that are reputable and better for the planet. Alongside this, these brands also utilise higher quality garments that offer better protection against the elements, something that is necessary in cyberpunk due to the degradation of the natural environment, and could provide the wearer with more functions, such as extra pockets, reversible features, or even protection. For example, riding and biker jackets are becoming more and more popular as fashion items. These often have padding in them that protects the rider from, dying. This functionality is often useful to the protagonists within cyberpunk as it allows them to perform well in a wider variety of situations whilst wearing a smaller variety of clothes, such as combat or exploration. A few brands that I'd like to mention are Patagonia, Carhartt, Dickies, Acronym, and Rose & X. These brands all either represent sustainability, high quality materials, or flexibility and utility. Now, whilst I personally love cyberpunk and respect the message that it tries to bring across, it doesn't exist without its issues. The depiction of men as lonely, worn down cogs that either end up rotting or snapping and going insane is a bleak one at best. But the representation of women within cyberpunk is a lot worse. They are often reduced to sex objects. The video game Cyberpunk 2077 plasters voyeuristic posters of women, showcasing their most attractive features whilst also hiding their faces from view. Other examples from the genre utilise the born sexy yesterday trope, where the female lead will suffer from some form of memory loss. I don't think I have to explain why this trope is a weird idea. You're taking a fully grown adult woman and reducing her mind to that of a child, therefore making her unaware of her sexuality and all the dangers that come along with it. These women are often extremely attractive and are placed into situations where they have little to no experience, due to the amnesia, of how they should be acting or what is safe for them to do. They are often completely unaware of their own self-worth and have little to no self-esteem and are willing to do whatever the male protagonist is saying. Now, admittedly, both of these contribute to the ideal within cyberpunk that is, you are not special and you will be used and spat out. However, the fact that women's struggles are often told with the male gaze in mind just shows that this genre has a long way to go. So, in conclusion, the reason I wanted to both research and speak about cyberpunk as a genre is because I find it intensely interesting. It provides a somewhat realistic depiction of what the world could be like if we continue to ignore the signs of both our planet and the people who care about the planet. I think it's a potentially terrifying image, but it's one that we all need to look at and consider very seriously, because if we want this planet to stay the way it is, we're gonna have to start making a lot of changes, and cyberpunk is really trying to hammer that point home, especially recently. So yeah, thank you for watching. This was just a short little research project for college, but I found it really fun to do, so